Yo, what is going on, everybody? Your boy, you Tasty Archangel here with a brand new video for you guys today. Hope everyone's feeling good, looking good, and smelling good. Hope you all had a good holiday break or Thanksgiving break. This is when you can see this video. This video is being recorded on Sunday, the 28th. So I don't know if you can see this video tomorrow, Monday, or later in the week. But anyway, either way, hope you all are enjoying it. Hope you all feel good, smelling good. You know the routine. Today, I wanted to have a different kind of discussion, different kind of topic video. Kind of a ranking video. I haven't done a ranking video in a while, other than Resident Evil video. And before that, it's been a very long time. Ranking videos was kind of like stopped being a thing on the channel for the most part, but I wanted to do one today. But more so just to bring attention to some ancient civilizations we don't really see video games about, and I love to see those ancient civilizations adapted into video game format, more specifically role-playing games or action RPGs, action adventure games like Assassin's Creed, God of War, etc, etc, etc. So what qualifies a game getting on my list? Well, any civilization that doesn't have a huge standing in modern games, civilizations that have history, lore, characters, multiple, like a mythological god pantheon, like Norse and the Greek, etc. Very interesting like figures and people in that time period. Key figures. Locations that are vast, beautiful, and expansive, and a lot of steep lore and folklore and just in general the land that's there, and the encompassing of a civilization that will make for a great gaming franchise and great storytelling, be it historical or fantastic. So if you want to like take a location that will be listed on this list and make it more fantasy, that can be done as well. But the general thought process is these are civilizations that don't get attention. These civilizations that aren't being mass produced in gaming, and some of these civilizations aren't even mass produced in other forms of media either. Some of these are ignored by basically everyone. These are very interesting and great civilizations that I myself, as a history buff, love studying and love learning about these because they're so interesting and so cool at the same time. But anyways, it's not a history video, so I also want the always disclaimer: this is just my opinion. Any video I make like this, these top videos, are an opinion. Many of you are likely to disagree with my opinion, and that is fine. I think we need to get past this dumb mindset that opinions means that everyone is wrong, or if my opinion different from yours is a direct insult towards you. No, it's okay for us to have different opinions. It's okay for us to be respectful towards each other's opinions, and if you feel like someone used some wrong information to provide in a constructive way, correct information that you found from whatever source that you can. But if you have your own civilizations that you want to see in the video game format, listen below in the comments below. And as well, follow me on Twitch. I stream every Monday through Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 7 Eastern. Link to the description box below, as well as on your screen right now. But with all of that said, let's get this video started, shall we? Coming in at the 6th spot, opening up my list, is ancient China. Now, in my heart, I love ancient Chinese culture, so it'd be higher on any list about ancient civilizations. But the reason it isn't higher on this list in particular is because though there isn't many games, there are some. There are some well-known franchises like the Dynasty Warriors franchise, for example. There's also Gucci, in which I did a review on. I'll have that attached at the end of this video. No Bloody Spell. There's a review coming off of that very soon. I'm not sure when, but I'm working on it now. Swords Legends Online as well, and there's also Jade Empire, which the latter is a game I wish we get a reboot of, because back in the day, I think Jade Empire back in the day, you might just heard me like bash my elbow. I think back in the day, Jade Empire should have been one of the biggest franchises in gaming because it was so good from BioWare, and it kind of got ignored. I feel like Jade Empire had the potential to be the most successful, most popular ancient China-based video game that there could be, because right now I feel like Dynasty Warriors is like the most successful when it comes to how people view ancient Chinese culture and Chinese video games. But Jade Empire to me could have been the best storytelling game when it comes to China, but it kind of just got ignored, and Microsoft kind of just let it die. So I'm really hoping that Microsoft goes back to Jade Empire at some point and give us that game. Ancient Chinese culture is massive in cinema though, but not in video games. You have all the kung fu movies, the kung fu hustles. Shang-Chi just came out. You have Mulan just got a live action version of for it. There's all mass. It's very massive. You can't go anywhere without a TV series or a movie coming out that's based around China or some form of kung fu martial art involving China in general. But in video games is very rare. It's very rare. And it's odd that you will see that something that's so massive in in movies, but not as massive in gaming. You would think Chinese culture history would be just as big as Japanese or Dark Ages, for example, in gaming. I really wish developers would dive deeper into ancient China and produce, games, especially indie game developers in China. Like I'm someone who prefers games from the source. So I would really like if Chinese developers will come up with some ancient China based video games, like Gucci and the Bloody Spell, but for the mass like population of games. A lot of these games that I mentioned, like Spell, Gucci, are kind of more indie than big budget AAA titles that you will see mass produced, like have a lot of advertisement here in the West. Coming in the fifth on the list is the Celtics. We see so much Nordic representation in gaming, but not much Celtic. I'd argue Celtic could be better and a nice breath of fresh air. They share some similarities in the games like Hellblade, No Sacrifice. It was said to all be inspired by Nordic and Celtic, but it's very clear that it's mostly inspired by Nordic. Celtic history is filled with interesting stories, lore, gods like Morgan, who often cross over into Arthurian stories, Cernunnos, Dagda, Cuchulainn, folk legends like Balor and Banshees. Games set with Celtic themes would give us some similar stories like God of War and The Witcher and Darkish titles like Dark Souls, but be fresh with story and lore of a civilization often forgotten. People make video games of European history. I feel like when you think about Europe's history, people always kind of just be like, oh, the Vikings, right? Yeah, Vikings. You also got the Dark Ages with the knights and the Knights at Round Table and Arthurian kind of stuff. But Celtic is kind of one of the things that gets ignored, and Celtic is very interesting history. There's a lot of folklore there that's will give you again very similar things to The Witcher, for example. And The Witcher is mostly based on Polish folklore, so that's also like a ancient civilization that kind of gets ignored. But I feel like Celtic is just better. I want to say better. I feel like better is the wrong word to use, but a potentially more interesting, civilization to dive deeper in when it comes to like the ancient tribes of Celtic tribes. As an honorable mention, I'll also throw in the Slavics as well. Slavic history, Slavic folklore. The Eternal blog as a Slavic god. That would also be kind of interesting. So, in general, Celtic is a good spot at number 5 on my list. At 4 on the list is ancient Mexico. When you hear names like the Mayan, the Aztecs, the Olmecs, you know how massive that history is on stories of ancient Americas. Yet there is no Assassin's Creed set or Dark Souls like ancient Mexico game or Dragon Age ancient Mexico game. Ancient Mexico is one of the most interesting historical periods in the Americas, yet is ignored by most genres, not just video games. Imagine playing a game where you can grind to reach the ranks of Aztec Jaguar, visiting cities like Field Tecon in its prime, missions like finding the hidden city of El Dorado. American developers would rather tell stories of European fantasies than stories from either North or South America. This will be mentioned again when it comes to the fact that here in the US, here in the West, we ignore our own history. It's a very common thing that we fantasize other people's histories but ignore our own when there's a lot of steep history in general in the West. Again, those names, Mayans, Aztecs, Olmecs. There's also like some other like lesser known tribes that you could draw like a lot of interest towards just by having video games based on it. Third on the list is Native American. We are seeing some games based on We're seeing some games based on lore and legends and history of Native America, but it's rare. It's usually by small studios that wouldn't be able to do better than provide, their games on PC only. With the most successful game being based on Native American history being Assassin's Creed 3, which is also one of the most disliked Assassin's Creed games. Games like Never Alone, an indie puzzle game that tells the story of the Black River people exist. The original Prey had a Native American main character, but that game was widely disliked and ended up getting rebooted multiple times before fully coming out as a game that has nothing to do with the original game. It doesn't contain any similarities in comparison to the original Prey. There is an upcoming game called The Trial of Ayasha coming out on PC, another indie game that seems to be more about a lot of cultures from the pre-Columbian area, but you play it as a Native American. There's also This Is My Land, another indie PC game. I played it while it was in early access. It is kind of an ideal open world based around a culture, but it's very noticeable that it's an indie game. I'm a little biased here, being someone with Native American ancestry as well as African ancestry, but in the list in general is biased, so fight me. But when it comes to Native American history, you would think, much like I said, when it comes to Mexico, you will think there will be a lot of Western developers out there who will love to make Native American based video games, but there isn't. Again, Here in the West, we fantasize over European history more so than our own history. And Native American history is quite bloody, and developers here are predominantly white, so they don't really want to like, dive deep into the brutal history of American and how the colonizers treated ancestors, essentially, especially when it comes to both my black ancestors and my Native American ancestors. It wasn't great. So you have to have these video games where you're painting your own people, not only developers, have to paint their own ancestors as villains essentially in these games where you want the protagonists to be Americans, but also I just want in general to explore the history, not the violence, the history of Native American cultures, all the ancient tribes. And some of the tribes, there's a lot of Native American tribes. There's way more than a lot of know about, but there's clearly the popular ones like the Navajo, the Seminole, Creek, and the Chippewas, the Cherokee. But also like there's some interesting ones like the Hopi, and they have like a lot of interesting like beliefs and theories and some things scientific that people believe in. Like the ancient aliens, for example, will kind of like point towards the Hopi as like some of the beliefs they have to point to alien existence in humanity and things like that. It can be so interesting. There's so much more to ancient American culture, American history than what you see on TV. And again, video games are a perfect format to adapt any kind of ancient culture into people to just learn about and do better with, because if you can make history fun, people won't even notice that they're learning, but they will learn because they're playing a video game and that lore is going to stick in their head. Second on this list is Assyrian. Most of you have no idea what Assyrian even is, and that's a good reason to have a role-playing or adventure games set in a time period based on or around ancient Assyrian culture and Assyrian history. This time period made up from multiple Mesopotamian civilizations known as the Cradle of Civilizations, with Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian, which I'm probably more familiar with Babylonian than Sumerian, Akkadian, and Assyrian. Now, having a game with all these cultures, all these civilizations will be awesome. Assyria was the pinnacle of scientific and technology at that time, and much like previous games mentioned on this list, there will be a lot of gods to build a fantasy about and around, like the original name Venus, which is Ishtar, the Babylonian goddess. There's also Ashur and Gushian. I'm pretty sure I pronounced that last one wrong. There's historical figures like Sargon of Akkad. There's so much potential when it comes to the Middle East in general. So when it comes to like that, this cradle of civilization will be so cool to play in and around. To have either historical like Assassin's Creed style, or just build a fantasy. Again, you can take all these ideas on this list, and not directly have to have them being realistic. They can be fantastical, kind of just like we do what comes to like Western, Eastern, and European, video game. Last on this list won't surprise people that know me, but will surprise people who when I mention that there isn't many big budget titles about it. Ancient Egypt. Much like Native Americans, the biggest game to be based around ancient Egypt was Assassin's Creed Origins, which in my opinion is the greatest Assassin's Creed game of all time. Yes, I said that, bite me. Ancient Egypt is the easy pick for number one. It is one of the most talked about, one of the most fantasized, one of the most beloved civilizations in all of human history, much like Norse, Greek, Roman. Ancient Egypt is vastly popular. Doesn't see as many big budget video games like those previously mentioned civilizations, Greek and Romans. But I'd argue ancient Egypt is way more interesting than all three of those combined. I'd argue ancient Egyptian mythology is better than all three of those combined, especially considering the fact that Greek and Roman are basically the same. Difference in name. Zeus and Jupiter. It's the same people. Anyways, get on topic. I'll take Egyptian gods over any pantheon out there, especially like Ra, Anubis, Osiris, Bastet, like Neith, like ancient Egyptian mythology. This pantheon is so much better. It's so much better, so much cooler in my opinion. And the historical figures, like we have to talk about this. Imhotep IV, aka Akhenaten, King Ramses II, Nefertiti, Moses, Cleopatra, the warriors of Siwa, the Magi, and a king named Tutankhamun, better known to y'all as King Tut. Ancient Egypt is perfect for storytelling, perfect for lore, perfect for folklore, perfect for having any kind of fantasy, video game. It's the perfect setting for video games. Yet there isn't really games out there based around ancient Egypt, and the biggest one is Assassin's Creed Origins. It's mind-boggling that ancient Egypt has been so neglected. Hell, even when it comes to Assassin's Creed, fans wanted the ancient Egypt Assassin's Creed game dating back before Assassin's Creed 3. We didn't even get one until Origins, which is 4 games since the release. 3. I love history. This video was just for fun and not so like I feel like we just need to do better. Like, come on, developers, give us what we want. Like, give us some more games. Like, I love historical video games, like, because you can have fun and learn at the exact same time. You can enjoy yourself with, you know, historical figures. I'm a big Assassin's Creed guy, so Assassin's Creed got me really like interested in the idea of having like real historical figures in video games while also being its own entity, its own IP. Like, you had Da Vinci in Assassin's Creed 2. He's not, you know, the Leonardo da Vinci like word for word, but it's still his character. You still seeing him and things like that. But I love history. You know, this video was just for fun, out of my want to play video games about and around these ancient civilizations. Some of which, you know, people, you know, some of which people tend to forget about. You know, I hope developers give these groups of ancient civilizations a chance for video games over you know, throwing out more and more Nordic and more Greek games and rebooting and remastering the same games over and over again, when there's so many more potential source materials out there for you to make brand new AAA IPs about. You don't have to keep rebooting the same games over and over again. You don't have to keep throwing out Nordic video games. I get everyone loves, you know, the Nordic pantheon, everyone loves Vikings and shit like that. Yeah, everyone freaking loves the Greeks and Greek mythology and things like that. But you don't have to keep throwing those out when there's other ancients out there, even beyond the ones I just named on this list. And for those who know me, also know that I'm an archer. On this list, I named some locations where my future bows might be coming from. I want to give me a bow that's based around the bows used in ancient Egypt. I want to give me an Assyrian bow. I have 2 Chinese bows. I have a Ming, and I plan on getting. I only have one. Thought about that. I only have one Chinese bow. I have a Ming KUN, but I do want to get another Chinese bow. And I have two Japanese bows. I have a Turkish bow. So I have a number of bows, and Turkish is also, you know, another one of the ancient civilizations that we don't really see video games about. Usually, whenever they have Persians or Turkish, you know, the Ottomans in the video game, there's usually like you don't really get to play as them. But so I mentioned Slavic as an honorable mention. So as we close with this video, another honorable mention be Turkish, you know, Ottoman, you know, ancient Turkish history, because there's a lot. The Ottoman Empire was like massive, and you can also, again, Persian. The Persian Empire was massive. Like, there's so many ancient civilizations. We can do so much more video games than just, hey, here's some Vikings, here's some Nordic, here's some Greek shit. There's way more than that. Anyways, with all that said, that's it for this video. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Being boy, you tasty Archangel, the most versatile content creator out there. Follow me on Twitch. Link to be in the screenshot below, on your screen right now. Y'all be safe. You'll be content with another. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Deuces.